I screwed up, but today I'm fixing it. This is Demon Primarch Cage Match Take 2. Turns out there's a lot of special rules. The warp is rumbling, the dice are trembling, and the Demon Primarchs are stepping into the ring. Today's episode is about pitting the Demon Primarchs against each other. We'll start by looking at their data sheets, then we'll simulate their output against some common targets as a barometer, and then we're gonna smash them together in the octagon. Like millions of times. Before we go too much further, I just want to get the noobs up to speed. My name's Blake, and I've written a custom program that takes an attacking unit and a defending unit, and then simulates the attack between them a million times. That way we can see the entire distribution of results. That's the data we're looking at today.
All right. I'm so happy to be doing this again.
Yeah, so this is the second time we're filming this episode, because the first time there were some smallish errors, and then there were some rules and points changes. So, yeah, we're doing this again. But I'm really excited because the results have changed slightly.
Well, so to clarify, this was partially because there was a tiny error, which actually we were afraid was a huge error, and then discovered was kind of minor. But then all their points changed, and then that sort of invalidated everything anyway.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm kind of glad we ended up doing this now. I was actually not thinking that the Primarchs would end up having points and rules changes. I was more afraid of other things changing.
Right.
So, yeah, I think this is probably for the best anyway.
But because of the return on investment calculation, which I think for some people is the most important one,
yeah,
this really changed a lot. So let's.
But also, it's a freaking cage match between the Primarchs, which is pretty freaking cool. So, before we go into this, let's go ahead and take a look at the 4 Demon Primarchs data sheets real fast.
Right, we got 4 Demon Primarchs to the 4 gods.
Yeah.
And now we're going to look at their data sheets first. Let's check it out.
Okay, so first up we got Fulgrim. They are actually in ascending order of points now. So Fulgrim is the cheapest.
Okay.
He's got a pretty standard stat line for Primarchs, if you can call that standard. Moves 16 inches, so he is actually fast. Toughness 11, 2-up save with a 4-up invuln. 16 wounds, leadership 5-up, and 6 OC.
Now wait, okay, you say standard. The one that I notice is the 16. He's a little faster.
No, he's faster than the other.
He's faster than the other ones, which makes sense.
Right,
Slanesh definitely has
he's a snake.
Yeah, the Slanesh vibe is speed.
So at range, he's got the Malefic Lash, which has sustained hits 1, 6 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. So that's a pretty decent marine killer profile.
Right, same route as Maleficent.
And then up close, he has Demonic Blades. His strike attack gives him sustained hit 1, 6 attacks, strength 14, AP 3, damage D6 plus 1. So he's got some big strikes.
That's pretty mean.
And then his sweep attack is also sustained 1, 12 attacks, strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. He loves killing Marines, obviously. And then anytime he attacks, he's also got the Serpentine Tail as extra attacks. That's just 6 more attacks, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1.
Wow, that's okay. I feel like my experience with extra attacks is that they're usually pretty floppy.
Yeah, but he's got a big old Primarch tail.
Yeah, he's like interesting. Okay, so he's pretty friggin' mean.
Yeah, he's working that booty.
He's really shaking it.
Yeah.
All right, he gets the abs.
In terms of abilities, he actually has Deep Strike, which I think is kind of interesting.
He has Deep Strike?
He has Deep Strike.
Is he the only one with Deep Strike?
I don't know.
We'll find out soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no, I just saw Deep Strike on the red one, which I assume
I think they might all have Deep Strike.
They might all have Deep Strike. Well, they're all winged.
Now,
I guess that makes sense.
In terms of his abilities, he's got Demonic Poison. So anytime he attacks something in the shooting phase or the fight phase, then afterwards those things are poisoned. And for the rest of the game, every command phase, they roll a dice and a 4-up. They suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Wow.
By the way, that's every command phase, so your command phase and your opponent's command phase.
So on average, 3 mortal wounds per turn.
Well, no, it only goes up on a 4-up, so it's 1 mortal wound per turn or 2 mortal wounds per battle round.
Gotcha.
But it applies to the unit, so that's fairly significant.
Wow.
On top of that,
and that applies to vehicles and stuff too. That's any unit.
Yeah, you can poison tanks, apparently.
Wow.
You know, you're poisoning their machine spirit. That's what's going on.
That makes perfect sense. I have no objections to that.
Dude, you're riding a tank into battle. It's just like, I'm tripping out, dude. You're like, you're a machine.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be pretty alarming if your tank started to hallucinate.
So he also he can pick, actually, at the start of your opponent's command phase, this is the only one that looks like this, you can choose one of these 3 abilities, and you can either give him subtract 1 from hit roll, you can give him fights first, or you can force opponents within 6 inches to take leadership tests in order to fall back, and if they fail, they can't.
Wow.
So I feel like it's pretty clear. Basically, like, if you think you're going to be fighting, you give yourself fight first. If you don't, you make yourself -1 to hit, and if you're already in combat, then you're like, you can't leave.
Wow.
With,
okay.
I'm sure subtle variations depending on
his
conditions.
beguiling form, due to his sexy abs from throwing that serpentine tail around, he
Well,
he
also,
outsexes people. He just totally
no,
but wait, I'm sorry.
Gained an ability.
I'm sorry. Before you continue, so he can get fights first on your opponent's command phase. So on their fight phase, we have a sort of descending order of operations for the fight phase, which is everyone who fights first. And who gets to pick first?
Your opponent does. So he fights first.
So, well, the players of the current person whose turn it is, their opponent.
Yes.
The person whose turn it is not, the opponent picks first, right?
Yes.
So he will fight firsty first.
Yes. If you charge him, he fights before you do.
Wow. Okay, sorry, yeah.
But he is a serpent, and one of the rules that he gained as a result of this last update is serpentine. A lot of people were complaining because he actually has the largest base at 130 millimeters, so he's huge.
Big.
So some people were complaining that he was just hard to get around the board, but as of now, he can now move over terrain features that are 4 inches or less.
4 inches in height or less?
4 inches in height or less.
Okay.
And you just slither right over them. But he
Okay.
also has to move over the terrain feature. He can't just move through it. So, like, you got to do some Pythagorean theorem stuff here.
Wait, really? Oh, damn it. I hate that.
Yeah, so knowing exactly how much that's going to remove is a little bit hard to say. But more than 8 inches, now that I'm thinking about it, if you're going over a 4-inch terrain feature. Oh, wait, that actually doesn't work that way.
So it's not that he can move through terrain, it's that he effectively has fly for things that are 4 inches or shorter.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, because that would be a big buff if he could just Kool-Aid man his way through the terrain. Right? Because that's a big difference.
Time out, though. He's got wings. He doesn't fly. I cut off the bottom of this data sheet, so I don't actually know what keywords he has. Let's take a moment and see if he flies.
Okay, do some Googling.
Because if he flies, and this seems kind of like...
redundant?
It seems completely redundant. He flies.
So...
What the hell?
Well, now we need all y'all on the... Okay, so those who are watching, please help us explain this. How is Serpentine? Each time this model makes a normal, advance, or fallback move, it can move over sections of terrain features that are 4 inches or less in height. How is that different from Fly, which allows you to fly over any terrain feature so long as you fly, Pythagorean theorem it?
Well, I think it's because any terrain feature that's 2 inches or less, you can just move over as though they're not there. I kind of feel like what they mean is if you have a terrain feature that's 4 inches or less, you can just move over it.
Well, that makes sense. But if that's
the
case, he's totally Kool-Aid manning through things.
Yeah, but he's also a snake, so he can go through windows and all kinds of weird shit. Also, yeah, you're right. He's probably just like busting through stuff.
Okay, well, that doesn't seem to be rules as written, so I feel like we need y'all to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what they mean is you can move over things that are less than 4 inches as though they weren't there, but that is not what that says.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
How interesting.
Yeah, okay, anyway. So also, as of recording, as of doing research... the coterie of the conceited attachment was the most common one for Emperor's Children, and about 64.8% of players were using that.
Was it coterie of?
The otaku of the conceited.
The otaku of the conceited is the most common. That's pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And in that detachment, if you want more details on this detachment, check out our Flawless Blade video. That kind of covers this in more detail. But if you have at least 3 pack points, which is not super difficult, then everything in your army gets reroll 1s to hit and reroll 1s to wound, which is just a flat 36.1% buff.
Which is pretty sweet. And we're going to assume, I take it, that he has achieved at least this minimum buff for our cage match.
So anything that I have in pink think on the right-hand side, I'm giving those buffs to the unit because I feel like those are just reasonable buffs to have within the detachment.
Okay, yeah. This is a cage match that we're assuming is happening in the middle of a battle.
Yeah, it's happening in the middle of a battle, so we're not optimizing for the cage match. We're optimizing for what I think the unit would probably have access to.
And are we going to hold consistent for that throughout this? So in these circumstances, when we set up this battle, or these cage matches, as you say, this is not blowing your complete wad, everything you can do. It's the things you're likely to do in a real battle, because that's more likely to inform the viewers, right?
Absolutely. And I've decided after doing a bunch of research, I'm actually not going to have any of these Primarchs using any stratagems.
No, none of them are using any stratagems.
None of them are using stratagems because I didn't actually find them to be cost effective for the most part, and I didn't want to give some of them buffs that I didn't give others.
Right. Because I'll bet you some of them have access to really good stratagems that you would totally want to spend the money or the CP on.
Yeah.
And others don't.
Yeah. So like one thing to mention is like he's got access in this detachment to unshakable opponents, so he can ignore modifiers to hit and wounds, which if he was in a prolonged combat, that might be really, useful, because if he's still in combat, then he's -1 to hit if he's shooting, for instance, and he could ignore that. But again, that really wouldn't be worth his points versus other Primarchs.
Right.
But you could do it. He also has Armor of Abhorrence, which is basically Armor of Contempt, but more angry.
It's even more angry.
So he could give himself -1 AP from incoming attacks. Again, he's got an invul of 4 up, though, so against most attacks from other Primarchs, this wouldn't really be worth the points either.
Right.
And you'd have to use it separately in the shooting phase and in the fight phase, because it's only for the phase.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just didn't want to forget that he can now move over terrain features that are less than 4 inches, which might have also been a rule that you can do with fly. But yeah, please let us know, because I'm pretty sure that means he can ignore the terrain feature if it's less than 4 inches, but I'm not positive.
But again, that's not rules as written, so
Yeah.
I feel like I want to know what people in the field do.
Totally. Oh, yeah, by the way, comment for the comment gods! Next up, we had another point drop. Angron is now only 360 points. He looks a lot like Fulgrim, except that he only moves 14 inches instead.
Right.
And he comes on a 100mm base instead of 130, which is kind of crazy.
That's kind of a big difference.
Yeah.
Again, 30 millimeters, that's 3 centimeters. That's more than an inch extra.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big... I still haven't seen an actual Fulgrim model, but I'm really excited.
I want to know what people are doing to base that mother flarper. Like, people have to do a whole diorama to cover that.
Except that he's, like, coiled around, so, like...
There's not that much exposed surface.
Not really. Yeah, we'll throw it up on screen, right somewhere.
I suspect you're going to forget, and there won't be there.
No, I won't! But Angron does not have any shooting attacks whatsoever. He is a pure melee character, and he's got the... Dane, say this.
We're going to go for the Hawaiian language rules for when there's an apostrophe. That's a glottal stop. You need to go Samna Arius. Samna Arius and Spine Grinder.
Yeah.
Spine Grinder. That sounds like you have to say it in the Gravedigger voice.
Mm-hmm.
Gravedigger.
Spine Grinder.
Spine Grinder. All right, so I think I need you to spoonerize Spine Grinder.
So as for the Samna Arius and Grindspinder...
Grindspinder.
Whether you strike or sweep, you get devastating wounds. If you're striking, you get 8 attacks, strength 14, AP 3, damage D6 +2.
Holy good gravy.
Instead of +1. And if you're sweeping, you get 16 attacks, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2.
Damn, he is really mean. Both of those with devastating wounds.
Mm-hmm, both with devastating wounds. So one thing that he has is after he dies, whenever you're rolling your Blessings of Corn roll, if you roll trip 6s, you can essentially give up all of your Blessings of Corn to have him revive at 8 wounds. And it used to be that he would just revive, period, and you still get your Blessings of Corn. So as we discussed in the Blessings of Corn video, this kind of sucks compared to where he used to be.
Yeah, he used to be unreasonable.
Yeah, which is a little unfortunate. But his other ability, Wrathful Prescience... Wrathful Presence, his other ability. He gets one of these 3 abilities, and this happens at the start of the battle round.
Whereas Fulgrim's was at the start of your opponent's command phase.
Yes, exactly. So his 3 abilities, one of them, you can reroll 6 of your Blessings of Corn rolls, your Blessings of Corn dice, which can be situationally useful. You can force anything within 6 inches to pass a leadership test in order to fall back, and if they fail, they have to remain stationary.
Is that like just Fulgrim's. Of him?
Nope.
Of this model?
Anything within 6 inches of the model.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, you can give any World Eaters units within 6 inches of him ignore changes to their advance and charge rolls, and each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, you can ignore any modifiers to the hit or weapon skill.
So one of them is that you can ignore all modifiers to this unit's move characteristic. That's particularly relevant against all the new movement debuffs coming from Leagues of Votann. Leagues of Votann has a bunch of ways to slow down their opponents now.
Yeah, a few units have that. I mean, I know the Eldar have that.
That could be really clutch.
That could definitely make a difference. In terms of what else he can get from detachment and stuff, because of just their faction rule, he's got really easy access to sustained and lethals through the Blessings of Khorne. Again, as we discussed in that previous video, you very frequently take sustained and frequently don't take sustained and lethals together. Although you could. So we just chose to give him sustained because my assessment is, unless you have a good reason to do something else, you give your army sustained.
Coming back to, this is the optimal choice for this is in the midst of a battle.
This is what I expect most commonly to be occurring, yeah.
Right.
And then for the detachment, in the Berserker Warband, which 80.9% of players playing this faction are using, he gets +1 attack and +2 strength on the charge.
Oh!
Yeah.
Strength 16 would be unreasonable. 9 attacks and strength 16?
Well, it's only really going to make a difference against, like, toughness 8.
True. And some really big heavies.
I don't think there are any really big heavies between 14 and 16.
Really?
There might be a 14 out there.
Is there any? Okay, again, good question for the comments section.
Because even the Knights are only toughness 11. Which
Somebody let us
nuts.
know in the comments section if there's anything you know of that is higher toughness than 14.
And then in terms of stratagems, he has access to Hack and Slash, which gives him +1 AP. Not useful in a lot of cases. I feel like that's probably better used on other units. And Frenzied Resilience. For 2 CP, you can give him -1 damage to incoming attacks.
Okay.
Which can be clutch, but again, for 2 CP, that's not something we're going to go use on him, although you could potentially.
Well, especially if you're kind of wondering if he's going to stand back up, although it seems unlikely.
But even then, do you want to give up all your blessings for your entire army to let him stand back up, even if he has like that 15% chance of doing it? So
well,
like
2 CP or army-wide blessings? I guess army-wide blessings sound better than 2 CP.
2 CP. Oh, yeah, probably in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
We just came out with a new shirt because everybody wanted the Chibi Sisters, so we had to give the people what they wanted. It looks great, and here I am wearing it. It's so comfortable and fashionable. Wear it to our next game night. We would really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks. Back to the thing. All right, next up, the one that didn't change since last time we tried this video was Mortarion.
Damn you, Drew.
He is now 380 points. He has, again, very similar profile, but he's only moving 10 inches instead, so he's a little bit on the slow side. In terms of range attacks, he either has the Lantern, which has the pistol keyword, and sustained hits D3, 1 attack, strength 10, AP 3, damage 3.
Okay.
And the other option is Rot Wind. Essentially, it'll just fart in your face, which has Blast, obviously.
Obviously, he's got
devastating wounds and lethal hits. You get D6 +3 attacks, strength 7, AP 2, damage 1. I ran a bunch of simulations to figure out when the heck you would want to use the Lantern over the Rotwind, because one's a pistol and the other one isn't, so you have to choose between them.
Right.
Because the Rotwind is blast, he can't use that in close combat.
He'd blast himself.
So
nobody likes to smell their own. Everyone likes to smell their own stink. That doesn't make sense.
Privately, yes. but I ran a bunch of simulations because I was like, when would you ever choose this? And I was like, oh, the one time you choose the Lantern over the Rotwind is if you're stuck in melee and you're shooting something in melee that you can't otherwise shoot with the Rotwind.
So just basic pistol reasons.
Yeah, so like the Rotwind, as far as I can tell, is better in like every circumstance.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And then in melee, he's got Silence with the chainsaw.
I love that Jay pointed that out. He's like,
I know, I never noticed
Silence,
that before.
but it has a chainsaw.
So the strike profile has devastating wounds and lethal hits. 5 attacks, strength 14, AP 3 damage, D6 plus 1.
It is silent but deadly.
Silent but deadly. And the sweep attack has lethals and sustained, 15 attacks.
Good gravy.
Strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. So great marine killing profile there.
What was the highest number? What was the sweep for Angron? Go back one.
16. Actually, it was more.
Well, that makes sense. For a moment, I thought that his was more. I was like, no, he's got to be slow and shit. All right.
All right. So he does have this Feel No Pain 5-up, which is really, really big for him.
Okay, so he has a third
durability
more
buff.
wounds than this all the time.
Lord of the Death Guard. Once per turn, this model can use one of the Lord of the Death Guard abilities, which we'll discuss on the next page. And Host of Plagues. At the end of your movement phase, roll 1 die 6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of this model, adding 1 to the result if they are afflicted, which they definitely are if you're turn 2 onward, because you're within
Afflicted
6.
is just within the range of their spreading
it's
thing. Minus
3
toughness.
inches for the first turn, 6 inches for the second turn, 9 inches turn 3 onward.
Okay. And that's minus 1 toughness and...
You get to choose. So basically the ones that I figured people would use the most are minus 1 toughness and minus 1 to save. I know that in a cage match it would be better if you had minus 1 to hit, but most of the time I see people taking minus 1 to save against this, because then you apply that to anything that you're attacking throughout your whole army. You want them to be minus 1 to save.
Right. Whereas minus 1 to hit would apply only to Mortarion.
No, the minus 1 to hit would apply to everything as well, but... Again, you have to be within contagion range, so if you're shooting long range, then this doesn't apply to you.
Okay, so minus 1 to hit means minus 1 from the weapon skill of anyone shooting your guys.
Yes.
Not this unit. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so these were the contagion buffs that we chose for him. And again, the minus 1 to save is a little bit unfortunate in a cage match because it's not going to make any difference, really. Against the other Primarchs, because he's AP 3 and everything, and all of them have invulnerable saves of 4-up. But again, I just don't see this taken very often, except in very specific cases. So the detachment that people are commonly using are Virulent Vectorium. About 47% of players are using that. Allows you to sticky objectives, and then the objectives become a source of contagion.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Also, I appreciate that this is only 47% of players. I feel like that's nice when everybody and their mom isn't playing the same detachment.
Well, there's a little bit of a spread. The other one that was common, I think, was Mortarion's Hammer, which was up there around 30%, something like that. So most players are taking one of those 2 detachments.
As opposed to that last one in Khorne, it was 80%.
Yeah, everyone's using the Berserker Warband.
Yeah.
So in terms of stratagems that you have access to in that detachment, he can reroll hits and wounds against inflicted targets only in shooting, which is just not worth it for Mortarion there. Or disgustingly resilient. For 2 CP, you can make him minus 1 damage, which is especially useful because he has that Feel No Pain 5-up.
Right.
But again, 2 CP, I'm assuming that we're not going to go ahead and use this, so he's not getting any other buffs from that
Whether or not you decide to use that is a fateful decision. 2 CP is so big. Again, I really think we need to do some kind of a calculation for how much a CP is worth, because I think the second CP is worth more than twice as much as the CP just before it.
Yeah.
So like a 2 CP stratagem costs 4 times as much as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we're definitely interested in making a short on this, but there's so many things that we'd have to, not a shorter video on this, but that's going to require looking at a lot of things to try and figure out how much a CP is worth and when it's worth that, and
I think we should
which detachments and etc.
I don't think there's any answer that's going to be comfortable without lots of input from people. I think we need some people's ideas. I'd love to know your calculation and how you got it.
Well, it's going to be a lot of different separate calculations, giving me different values, and then trying to take an average and a spread of them.
To clarify, I mean, for those who might put forth an explanation in the comments, I would like to know your explanation and how.
Yeah, why do you feel that way?
Yeah,
how much is the CP worth? How much is the second CP worth?
I think we need to aggregate the explanations and conclusions of many people.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the inputs. So, in terms of his Lord of Death Guard, the abilities that he gets, that he can choose. Oh, by the way, he gets to use 1 per turn, so 1 in your turn and 1 in your opponent's turn. So his abilities trigger whenever you want and trigger twice as often as the other Primarchs.
Damn.
And his 3 abilities, although most of them it seems you would use in your opponent's turn, but anyway. 3
Diseased influence.
Right. So after an enemy unit ends a move within 9 inches of a Death Guard unit that's within 6 inches of Mortarion, they can then make a reactive move of 5 inches.
So everybody within 6 inches of Mortarion can make a 9-inch, or can make a die 6-inch, or a normal reactive move if somebody moves within
9 inches of them.
9 inches. That's a little bit of a mental.
I know. Yeah. All of these are kind of like that. There's also Boon
of Death,
which is in the fights phase only, which I guess makes sense. A unit that's within 6 inches of him can get fights on death on a 2-up.
Per model on a 2-up?
Yeah, per model on a 2-up. And the last one is Inflamed Reprisals, which is probably where the Rotwind comes in. So in your opponent's shooting phase, if something shoots at a Death Guard unit within 6 inches of Mortarion, then that unit can then shoot back.
So something within 6 inches of him can shoot back?
Yes.
Something within 6 inches of him can make a reactive move, or what was the other one? Or within 6 inches can make a fight on death on 2-up.
You got
That's
it.
pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Again, suggesting that Mortarion is really in a support role.
I feel like he is buffing the rest of his army a lot more than the other Primarchs.
He's just there to not die and help everyone else. Got it.
Totally. And then the most expensive one, and in my opinion, one of the coolest and most interesting both models and data sheets, is Magnus the Red, who I absolutely love. I am falling in love with him as a result of doing the research for this video.
It's got to be the nipples.
Yeah.
The nipples do it for me too. I get it.
Right. When Dane does the cosplay, we'll definitely be uploading photos.
We'll start the OnlyFans.
He moves 14 inches. He has 2 different shooting attacks. He's got the Gaze of Magnus with devastating wounds, 3 die 3 attacks, strength 11, AP 2, damage 3, which is pretty sweet.
Damn.
Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is blast and ignores cover and gets die 6 plus 3 attacks, strength 6, AP 1, damage 2.
Damn.
And then in melee, he has the Blade of Magnus. The strike attack is devastating wounds, 7 attacks, strength 16, AP 3, damage 3. So only damage 3. He doesn't actually have any like giant punches like the other ones do.
Yeah. Only damage 3.
Or the sweep attack, which is 14 attacks, strength 8, AP 1, damage 2.
I'm looking at the Blade of Magnus, and I don't think he's a close combat. He's just not a close combat dude. He'll do it if he's got it.
Totally is. But he's like, unlike the other ones, he's like kind of half and half, where like half of his damage comes from shooting and like half of it comes from melee.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty even split. We're going to look at that breakdown a little bit later. Mm-hmm. In terms of his abilities, he's got Unearthly Power. At the start of each battle round, you can select one of these 3 abilities. One of them, the one that I assume that you're going to take the most often, is subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of incoming attacks.
Impossible form! I'm imagining something MC Escher.
Treason of Tzeentch. A unit shooting in your opponent's shooting phase, you pick a unit that you can see within 24 inches, and their weapons get hazardous.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
That's
I like
sick.
that.
Visualizing the battle, that's pretty cool. I don't know, I dig it.
And then Time Flux, where all units within 6 inches of him get +2 to their move characteristic. So stuff around him can move extra fast.
Oh, that's pretty damn cool. I love the idea of him just getting up close on some big guns and then those big guns blowing up as a result.
I know.
That's freaking cool.
So good. In terms of his other ability, he has Lord of the Planet of the Sorcerers, which definitely belongs on your CV.
Also, I am Lord of the Planet of the Sorcerers.
Yes, exactly.
Was that worth
so
dental?
This allows him to cast 2 rituals rather than just 1 for the faction ability, and each time he does, he gets +2 to his psychic tests. So just to be clear on that, essentially their faction rule gives them 4 different rituals or kind of like spells that their psychers can cast. I wish I had written down the names so that you could read them.
Son of a gun.
I know, but one of them that you can pick, you can mark a target to then get reroll 1s against it or reroll all hits against it. And essentially the way this works is you roll 2 dice and you try and get over a certain number, like in this case 5. But if you get over 10, then you get the better ability, which is reroll all hits instead of just rerolling ones to hit.
Oh, so they sort of consolidated the 9th edition magic phase.
Yeah, so they still kind of have like a magic phase, but it happens all in the shooting phase.
Okay, well, that's an interesting.
So just for some numbers for him, he's got a 97% chance of having this go off, or a 42% chance of getting the better one for reroll all hits.
Because of the add 2 to the psychic test.
Because of the add 2 to the psychic test. And again, this is assuming that you're not channeling the warp, which means you're not rolling a 3rd dice, because anytime you roll doubles, you then suffer mortal wounds.
I feel like the chances of rolling doubles on 3 dice is pretty high.
But the thing that's nice, you get to roll the first 2 dice and then choose if you want to roll the 3rd one. So you get some information first. So you know what your odds are going to be.
Well, theoretically, if 2 out of 6 options are already occupied, meaning you have not yet rolled doubles, then rolling a 3rd means you have a 1 in 3 chance of suffering perils.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I look at it is if you roll 2 dice and you do suffer perils, then obviously you're going to roll the 3rd one to try and get that higher threshold.
Yeah, if you already got perils, you may as well, right?
Exactly. The other one, he's got another one that allows you to pick a unit and give them an additional die 6-inch move or 6-inch move if you roll high enough. I think this should say 10. Yeah, this should be 10. So he's got a 92% chance of that going off, or a 36% chance of getting the better one to go off, where something just moves 6 inches. So you basically get something to move extra far before they shoot, which is really, really nice.
That is sweet.
There's another one that's essentially just a mortal wound bomb. So you do die 3 inches if you can get to 7, die 3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Did I say inches? Sorry. Die 3 damage if you can get to 7, die 3 plus 3 damage if you get to 11. He's got an 83% chance of having that go off, or a 28% chance of getting the die 3 plus 3.
Damn.
Which is really nice. And the last one, which is crazy, you can improve the AP against a particular target by 1 if you can get to 9, or improve the AP by 2 if you can get to 12.
Oh, you have to get to 12. Jeez. Okay.
Potentially on 3 dice, and then he gets +2 to his. So he's got a 58% chance of that going off without Perils of the Warp. I'm sorry, without channeling the warp. And he's got a 17% chance of that going off and getting the AP2, which is kind of nuts.
But the number goes way the flip up. If you, well, again, you get to inform your decision, so it's a little bit hard to do the calculation. But like with 3 dice, you'd have an average roll of 3.5, so you'd have 10.5 plus his 2. On average, if you channel the warp, you have a greater than 50% chance with him to achieve a warp charge 12, right?
Well, you got 3 dice. They're on average going to get 3.5. So is that
7,
10.5. 10.5. Yeah.
Add
so
2.
Better than 50-50 odds.
You'd have better than 50-50 odds. Wow.
Absolutely. And then, as of time of research, Grand Coven was the most commonly taken detachment, 62.9% of players using it. And it's essentially like the Space Marine Doctrine ability, where in your command phase, you get to choose one of these doctrines, which is all your psychic weapons get an extra 6-inch range, all your psychic weapons get +1 to wound, or all your psychic weapons get devastating wounds, and crucially, all of his weapons are psychic.
Wow. Yeah. So he gets really mean.
Right.
One way or another.
And just like in Gladius Task Force, you can spend a CP to then move a unit into one of those doctrines. So I figure you're probably going to end up giving him +1 to wound a lot of the time if he's going after tough stuff.
He's either already got it or you're going to spend the CP.
Yeah, exactly.
Although we did not spend the CP, we just assume, what configuration did you put him in the cage match then?
+1 to wound.
+1 to wound.
Because you can get access to it at some point, and then you can just flex him into it if you've already used it and you really need it. So I'm just like, he can get access to that if he wants it for the big target, and that's when you're going to use it.
And you're still technically sticking to your no CP spendage.
Yeah, probably. So the other buff I gave him is I assumed that you're going to mark your target, and he already hits on a 2, so you only really care about rerolling 1s. He's got, in fact, if he channels the warp, he has a 100% chance of getting to warp charge 3. He does. Yes. To warp charge 5, sorry. Because even if you roll trip 1s, you still make it to 5 with +2.
Wow, but you also suffered Perils of the Warp, and also
44% chance that you suffered Perils of the Warp, and that's assuming that you decided to.
If you rolled 3 1s, then you definitely have.
But even on your first roll, I mean, this only doesn't work if you roll Snake Eyes, so 1 in 36 chance.
Good point.
Yeah. So I'm assuming he's going to get to reroll ones to hit, and I'm assuming that he's going to get +1 to wound with his weapons.
Gotcha.
Another thing he's got access to, for 2 CP, you can add 9 inches to psychic weapons and reroll hits and wounds, but somebody mentioned that he essentially should always be using this, but if he's hitting on 2s, and he's already rerolling 1s, and he already has +1 to wound, and he's frequently wounding on 3s, I don't feel like 2 CP is worth it to reroll 1s to wound and sometimes 2s to wound.
Right.
So we're not going to give him Devastating Sorcery.
Both because we've decided that we're not spending CP, but also because you wouldn't.
Right. I ran the simulations with this to see what would happen, and it actually, if we assume 50 points per CP, this reduces his return on investment.
Right, that makes
sense. So this
sense.
doesn't actually help him on that calculation.
Even with what I think is a pretty low assessment of what a CP is worth, a second CP. Also, okay. I'm sorry, but only witches are in covens. Sorcerers aren't in covens. Sorcerers are in cabals. Also, Illuminati are in cabals, right? What else is in a cabal?
Balls.
Balls. A cabal of balls.
We're not 12. Also, he has access to for 1 CP, he can just change the damage characteristic of an attack to 0. Which, again, we're not using that, but that's pretty nuts. This is something that I feel like he very well might use, but I'm not including. Mm-hmm.
Devastation of balls.
Yes, the devastation of balls. Which could be a t-shirt. Just saying.
Tell me if you want to see it.
All right. So with that, I wanted to look a little bit more at the psychic rituals. So what I did was I just made a really quick table, and I was like, all right, so what if you do decide to channel the warp? If you do decide to channel the warp, if you're going in blind, you got a 44% chance to suffer perils of the warp. But as you mentioned earlier, if you already roll the first 2, and then you're trying to decide whether or not you want to roll the third one, if you already suffered perils, why not? And if you didn't already suffer perils, then you only have a 33% chance of suffering perils of the warp.
Gotcha. Because that last 11.1% is meaningless. Mm-hmm. Because you would just, though that includes the times when you saw that you rolled it with 2 and went on anyway.
Right. Yeah. So again, I wish I had kind of had these up here, but the warp charge of those 3 rituals was 5, 6, 7, and 9. Mm-hmm. And these are the thresholds of, this is your probability of getting to each one of those. Because one of the other things they did was they changed the rules since we filmed this the first time, and now you're only allowed to attempt each ritual once. It's not you can cast it once, it's you can only attempt it once, which actually I think makes Magnus even more valuable than before, because if you need something to go off, you probably use Magnus.
Right.
Because if you try it once and fail, you just don't get that ability now.
Right, you want to use his +2 to cast. Mm-hmm. But man, perils really suck if you get them on Magnus. Yeah.
So this is just for a standard sorcerer. You can see that like your probability of having each of these go off is actually really high at this point. And if you give yourself +2 with Magnus, then you can just take each of these and
slide them up 2 slots.
Which is why Magnus always will succeed at the Doom Bolt, for instance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doom Bolt.
Mm-hmm. And again, like you said before, we can actually see the odds. So getting the AP2, that's a warp charge 12, which would normally be a 37.5% chance for going off for any other unit.
He can do it 62.5.
He can do it 62.5% of the time.
Which, as Dane's P-Brain calculated, is more than 50%.
Yeah, pretty close to 2 out of 3.
That's pretty swizzle.
Totally.
Pretty swizzle nips.
Mm-hmm. Also, I just did a really quick calculation just for fun. If you're using the Doom Bolt, then on average, you can expect to do 2.5 mortal wounds. And if you decide to channel the Warp, then you do an average of 4.04 mortal wounds.
Because by channeling the warp, you're more likely to cross the higher threshold?
You're more likely to cross the higher threshold. Yeah.
4.04.
Yeah. And by the way, this is not running with Magnus. This is running with anyone else. So any of your other sorcerers essentially can expect to do this much damage.
Actually, then, that would really... Yeah. He would this is expected mortals for each attempted cast. So this includes scenarios where you fail to cast?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so he would, based on this, do more.
So Magnus, I mean, he gets that higher threshold 98.1% of the time. So for Magnus, the expected mortal wound damage is actually pretty damn close to 5.
Significantly higher.
Yeah. Totally. All right. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to do a defensive analysis. And one of the things that we might or might not have noticed is that Angron and Fulgrim have identical defensive profiles. They are exactly the same.
Who?
Fulgrim and Angron.
Oh.
Did I say Magnus?
I don't know, but now we know what you meant.
Yeah. But I also noticed that Fulgrim has access to Armor of Abhorrence. So just to differentiate, I decided to give Fulgrim a -1 to AP just so we could see how that was different. If you decided not to give him the -1 to AP, then his column would look exactly the same as Magnus's.
Allow me to speak for everyone real quick. The fact that the 4 colors you used here are perfectly associated with the 4 guys, but they're not actually intended to indicate them,
Is a little problematic.
it definitely threw me off for a moment. So Fulgrim is all of these right-hand column.
Yeah.
Then we got Magnus Angron. And then Morty has 2 columns because one of them is with a -1 damage.
Yeah, if you decided to give him -1 damage.
Got it.
Because it would be extra effective against him.
Okay, and then the color indicates their hierarchy as you list them.
So green is essentially the best in the row, and red is the worst in the row.
Okay, in the row, horizontal.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the column. Yeah, in the row. Sorry, I said that right the first
Okay,
time.
so lasguns,
Yeah, it
lays
takes-
guns.
864 laser gun hits to take down Morty.
Okay.
And he's the winner. Everyone else only takes 575 laser gun hits.
And that's why there's only a top and bottom, is because only 2 values are represented. Got it. I'm
Yeah.
following now.
Cool. Yeah. And again, remember, these are hits, not attacks. So if you're hitting on a 4-up, you could double these numbers.
Okay, so Mortarion, whatever you give him, is the toughest against lays guns.
For bolt guns,
Lays, and lays.
Fulgrim does really well if you give him the -1 AP. I don't know how there's going to be this many bolter attacks from a single unit, but just saying. He would still take 575 bolt gun hits to take down. Whereas Angron and Magnus are the weakest, taking 289 bolt gun hits.
The difference being because of...
The -1 AP. Because against him, it would essentially be AP 0.
Ah.
Yeah. So that's the one place where the -1 AP really makes a difference, is against AP 1 weapons.
Yeah, that makes a big difference there.
Yeah. All right, so next up we got overcharged plasma guns at strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. The best defensive profile here would be Magnus because of his -1 damage.
Right.
But if we had given Mortarion -1 damage also, it would have taken 144 of these hits to take him down.
Because normally overcharged plasma is D2, so -1 damage cuts that in half. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it literally doubles your number.
Now, have you ever seen the model of somebody who did a plasma gun? They're like holding it and then they use the rocket launcher arm.
Yeah, I love it. I want to make one of those.
I think you need to make one because I think that's the coolest thing ever. Anyway, sorry, I just thought about that.
All right, so the losers here obviously are Angron and Fulgrim. Fulgrim's -1 AP wouldn't make any more difference for anything else because the AP is just high enough.
It's high enough that everyone's on invul now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why only does it matter on AP1 weapons.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we got Melta in Melta range at strength 9, AP 4, damage D6 plus 2.
Actually, it would matter on AP2 weapons also. It's just there are none in this.
That's true. There's none in
Okay,
here.
just to clarify, because the 2s to 4s means there's anything with 1 or 2 would matter. But once you hit 3, reducing 1 still is just no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, for these Melta guns in Melta range, it would take 30 hits to take down Mortarion, 36 hits if he had -1 damage.
Okay.
Magnus is going to take 25 hits. Angron and Fulgrim are going to take 21 hits.
Okay.
For laser cannons, 24 hits to take down Mortarion, 30 if he's getting -1 damage. The losers here are, again, Fulgrim and Angron, only taking 13 laser gun hits.
Wow.
Sorry, 13 laser cannon hits. And the biggest one, which I had to run some separate simulations to get this, a railgun, Tau railgun. It's strength 20, AP 5, damage D6 plus 6.
Holy good God. And that's just on like the biggest big bads, right?
Yeah,
The
totally.
Riptide, I think, has one. Anyway, someone tell us.
I don't
some
know.
Big, some big
Tau
things.
stuff.
And again, I'm noticing that all of Angron and Fulgrim's numbers are identical except for where AP1 is effective because they have the same defensive profile.
AP1 is effective?
Where AP1 is
yeah.
the effective statistic.
Right. So in this particular case, Magnus's -1 damage doesn't really make very much difference against a D6 plus 6.
Right.
Right. So this does include some rounding because I had to round up because I assumed that you had to take a full hit to kill something.
That seems
but yeah,
reasonable.
it takes 7 hits to kill any of the other Primarchs. It takes 9 to kill Morty, or 10 if he's got -1 damage.
Okay.
Again, that
wow.
difference is just due to rounding, whereas Magnus was more. It took a little bit more to take down Magnus than Angron and Fulgrim, but not enough that, 1 digit made a difference.
Right.
So again, what we're finding here is that Morty is the most durable.
Yeah, there's way more green on Morty than anywhere else.
Magnus comes in second, and Angron and Fulgrim are basically the same, but Fulgrim does have access to a -1 AP.
So
Although
Fulgrim-
Angron does have access to a -1 damage, but it's 2 CP to do it.
So arguably Fulgrim in general, if you're trying to utilize this, in general, Fulgrim is about as tough as Mortarion is when it comes to small arms fire. With at least AP1.
If it has exactly AP1, or I guess
or
probably
AP2.
AP2.
Yeah. So against what is comparatively small arms fire, Fulgrim is like comparatively tough, like Mortarion level almost.
If
so
you can spend the CP, but this is only going to act against one target, is the other thing to remember.
Oh,
so if you've got a
okay.
bunch of stuff going into him, this is only going to make a difference against one squad.
Okay, so then as far as then we're going to ignore that in terms of my brain. So I'm just thinking that I'm looking at Magnus as our number 2 durability.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I see too.
Okay.
Cool. So, next up, we're going to go ahead and throw them into some benchmark targets.
Okay, this is our barometer.
Yeah.
This is the barometer phase.
Just so we can see how they do against some other stuff.
First, we took a look at the beat sticks. Now we're going to measure the beat sticks, and then we'll sick the beat sticks against each other.
You got it.
Just be beating sticks.
So first up, in honor of Dane, we're going to go ahead and throw these guys into orcs.
You butthead.
And again, I did color coordinate these, and I tried to put the buffs up in this legend up here so you could remember what was in there. But Fulgrim, again, with his reroll 1s to hit and reroll 1s to wound, is going to kill like 20 orc boys.
So you color coded this, meaning you're going to superimpose the superposition of the graphs?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it when you do that. I find that so helpful. I know it's a lot of work.
But the graphs will be color coded so that we can remember that.
Okay, Fulgrim's perp.
Yeah, Fulgrim does the best, killing 20 between 18 and 22 orc boys. And again, we're not taking knobs into consideration.
And we're assuming outside of WOG, because in WOG they have a 5-up invul.
Right, yeah, not assuming other buffs that you could give these guys.
Right.
Actually, in last place comes Angron. He's killing only like 11 of them between 10 and 13.
Okay.
Then we have Mortarion killing about 17 of them between 15 and 19. And we have Mortarion doing just slightly better than that, killing, again, 17-ish between 15 and 19.
I love the way, so on the left we have...
Oh, yeah. So on the left, this is damage. And on the right, we have models killed.
Gotcha. So the reason we have the giant spike on Angron is because you have the same number of simulations and therefore data points for all of these, but if it's only every other column, then each column that is represented is likely to be...
I'm not getting it entirely, but Angron has multi-damage attacks, which doesn't help against orcs.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's the worst performer against boys.
Yeah, he absolutely is. So I do want to point out, like, Magnus does actually do the most damage, but, like, he's beat out by Fulgrim, because Fulgrim has a bunch of damage 1 attacks.
Right. So this is actually, that's an interesting way to look at it. So the further to the right our graphs are, the more damage they're doing, obviously. Duh.
Yeah.
But the fact that some are higher is due to basically a narrower spread and therefore a higher peak and therefore more predictability as the results.
The narrower the graph is, the more consistent they are.
So over here we have Magnus the Red is performing the best because his data points are furthest to the right, but because it's
You're talking about for damage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because it's also the lowest, it's likely to be the least predictable.
The lowest what?
In terms of legit altitude. Actual altitude.
So he's got a broader spread.
He's got the widest
else.
spread, even if that spread has the peak that's furthest to the right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good observation. Next up, we're going to have to throw these guys into some intercessors. Again, Fulgrim loves himself some intercessors. He's killing like 14 and a half between 13 and 16.
He's killing almost as many intercessors as he is boys. That's crazy.
I love it. For Angron, he's only killing about 10 between 9 and 12. Again, a lot of his attacks are just wasted. And again, these are all sweep attacks that we're using.
He's got really juicy, meaty attacks that are getting wasted, even on elite space marines.
Yep. Mortarion killing about 12 and a half between 11 and 14, right in between Fulgrim and Angron. And Magnus actually doing less damage here than you would expect. He's only killing 11 of these guys between 9 and 13. He's only just barely beating out Angron in this case.
Interesting.
Which does kind of surprise me. Again, I think of intercessors as being a very standard middle of the road target.
Just because everybody and their mom plays Space Marines.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm like influenced by that. But Magnus does not do the best against them. In fact, he only comes out on top of Angron in this particular case.
Wow, he's third to last because it's such a suboptimal target for him.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay.
All right, next up, into some Terminators. I had to do a little bit of finagling here because, as I found before, with their invulnerable save and weird toughness and 2-up save, sometimes they like strikes and sometimes they like sweeps better when you're going into them.
Okay.
So I ran all of them to test them.
Oh, great.
With Fulgrim, this was a weird case where like his strike and his sweep attacks both killed the same number of models. So I just included his sweep because it was ever so slightly more consistent.
Okay. Obviously, when you strike and sweep are optimal for different ends of the toughness spectrum, and we're saying right here is about where they're crossing.
Yeah, this is just about the crossover point.
Right.
So Fulgrim can kill like 4, almost 4.5, between 4 and 5 Terminators, which is pretty sweet.
Cool.
We've got Angron killing again like 4.5 between 3 and 6 Terminators. He can swing a little bit higher, you can see.
Yeah, he can. Again, that's a little bit less predictable, but because the tail end, it's squatter and broader, so less predictable, but because the tail end is off to the right, that suggests he's more likely to spike high.
Yeah. So he does the most damage, but he does not do the most kills. Mortarion is only killing like almost 4 Terminators between 3 and 5.
He's what would appear to be the most consistent so far, even if
the most consistently poor.
The most consistent and yet the poorest, yes.
And then finally, Magnus likes Terminator. He's killing like 6.5 between 5 and 8, so he's wiping whole squads of Terminators.
Oh, that
In
hurts.
fact, he's killing whole squads of Terminators and sometimes killing
the character attached to
them. Yeah.
Oh, and now this is shooting and close combat.
Shooting and close combat.
Okay.
Oh, I should also mention Mortarion used the sweep here. Fulgrim used the sweep, but it didn't really matter, although sweep is a little more consistent. Angron and Magnus were both using strike attacks as the optimal attack here.
Okay, and you said you ran both, so you picked which of the two performed better.
Yeah,
for each of their respectives.
So I ran some mini simulations. I was just like, run every combination at only 10,000 simulations so I could figure out which one's the best, and then I ran full simulations based on those.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. All right, into some lighter-ish vehicles like a Gladiator. We can see that Fulgrim is doing like 25 damage to it between
now
20
we're
and 30.
starting to get to a zone where they're very happy to find.
Oh
these
yeah,
targets.
they like vehicles like this. So Fulgrim's going to kill this like 96% of the time.
Oh my
It's dead.
glob. That's pretty sick.
Finally, we get to a place where Angron is actually doing the best.
Oh, there must be a pretty tight grouping then here.
Fairly tight. He's doing about 29 damage between 21 and 36. You can see if there were a bunch of these right next to each other and you allocated attacks properly, you could potentially kill multiple vehicles with him. But again, that's a delicate balance that I probably wouldn't go for most of the time.
Yeah, like you wouldn't do that. Like because they don't come in a unit, you're basically saying, I know exactly how many attacks is going to kill this first one, and that's how many I'll save for the second one, and it plays out perfectly.
Right, which is unlikely.
Wow.
Mortarion does the worst here, only doing about 16 damage, but again, pretty high probability to kill this thing, between 12 and 20 damage.
Okay, and that says 0.2, so that means 22-ish, 23-ish. That's like 23% of the time he fails.
Yeah, something like that. And then Magnus comes in just behind Angron, doing about 26.5 damage between 22 and 31. So here we're kind of seeing Magnus and Angron coming in pretty close, but you do notice, as you've been mentioning, Angron has a tendency to be able to swing higher, but also swing lower, where Magnus is going to be more consistent.
Right. Magnus and Mortarion seem to have the highest spikes and therefore the tightest groupings.
Yeah, but it's hard to say because Magnus is always going to have
So
some interesting
stepwise.
geography, whereas Mortarion is always going to have kind of a bell shape.
Right, because
So-
of all his damage 1 attacks.
Right, so the height alone is probably not enough.
Right.
Not enough to know. And then finally, if you're going into the heaviest targets, like a Tyrannofex... Oh, actually, this time I picked a Land Raider. If you're going into a Land Raider... Fulgrim is going to do about 19.4 damage. Ooh. Giving you a pretty good possibility to kill this thing, like, 68% of the time, something like that.
Wow.
Angron does the best, doing about 24 and a half, almost 25 damage between 18 and 31.
Oh my god.
Killing it over 80% of the time.
Oh my god.
Mortarion is doing the worst at only about 14 damage between 10 and 18. Still a pretty decent chance to kill. Maybe
yeah,
1
like
in 3.
1
a
in
little
3.
better than 1 in 3. And again, Magnus up there kind of competing with Angron, but actually in this case, not really. He does not like this target as much. He's only doing about 18 damage between 14 and 21. Again, probably going to kill it.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out, we are definitely starting to see against these really hard targets that Angron is really starting to come into his own.
Yeah, he really, even if his spike is only, his apex is only a little bit higher, the fact that there's such a big tail on the right there means like at any time Angron could come in and do something crazy.
And he could also come in and just totally flub.
Yeah.
I think that actually might be one of the reasons why people are reluctant about Angron. Because, yeah, his average is high, but man, that's a big variation.
That really is.
Yeah, actually, I want to look at that a little bit closer.
Look at that. He's gotten data points all the way out to 60.
Oh, yeah, and down here.
Oh, there's a big spike at 0.
I mean, that is like a 0.5% chance. But yeah, he could just completely not do anything, and that would not be an insane outcome.
Wow.
All right, so I don't know why that's
Can we? I want to just review who was the most toppiest on each of those. So
So against Tyrannofex and the Gladiator, it was Angron. And
against Terminators,
it was Magnus.
Okay.
Against Intercessors, it was Fulgrim, and against Orc Boys, it was Fulgrim.
Fulgrim, Magnus.
So Fulgrim for the low stuff, Magnus for the mid stuff, and Angron for the biggest stuff.
Yeah, but again, that biggest stuff be coming with big asterisk.
Yeah.
Asterisk of swing high, swing low.
Right. You got it.
Also, pause for a moment. I really just want to make sure that all the patrons know that we really, really appreciate your support. This is so much work. Like, it's a crazy amount of work, and it really wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you. And for anybody who wants to support us, leaving a comment or subscribing, of course, means a lot. But if you want to join our sort of now growing Discord community, which really is blossoming, then join our Patreon. There's a link in our bio, and it just would really help us out. So anyway, appreciate you. Back to the episode.
All right, so now the moment we've all been waiting for. So now we get to smash the Primarchs into each other. Yeah, all right, so we're doing that now. All right, so the way I've organized this is we're going to take all 4 Primarchs and we're going to send them into each Primarch one at a time to see what damage they can do. And then once we go through all 4 Primarchs, we will know both how much damage every Primarch can do and how survivable every Primarch is, coming with attacks coming from every other Primarch. Okay. And then we can analyze the results.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do.
So we're going to have 2 different hierarchies, how much damage they do, and a second hierarchy for how well they endured the attacks of the other 3.
I'm not making a hierarchy out of them, but we're taking both pieces of information to then compare them, yes.
Okay, so but then at the end, we're going to aggregate those 2 into a combined how badass, and probably a return on investment again.
Yep, I'm going to do a return on an ROI analysis for sure.
All right.
Okay, so first up we got Fulgrim. And Fulgrim does about 15.72 damage to Fulgrim.
This is Fulgrim fighting Fulgrim. Got it. Okay.
Doing between 11 and 20 damage. And again, he's got 16 wounds, so you're going to kill him just less than 50% of the time.
This is when Fulgrim plays with himself.
Yes. It is
with his big whipping
fatal
snake
about half
tail.
the time. All right, next up, Angron going into Fulgrim. He's going to do like 20 and a half damage between 14 and 27. He actually wins out. He does the most damage here, and he's got something like a 68% chance to kill Fulgrim.
Wow. Okay. So, well, from what I've seen so far, Angron likes the biggest bads.
Yeah, Angron does like the biggest bad, so I do expect him to do well in a cage match.
Right.
Next up, we have Mortarion, who obviously does not do as much damage. He does about 10 between 6 and 13, which means even his 75th percentile does not typically make it to a killing blow. It looks like he's going to kill him like 15 or 16% of the time.
Ooh, not good.
Not good. Even though he gave him -1 toughness and -1 save, that literally doesn't make a difference in the cage match.
Right.
Yeah. And then finally, Magnus. Magnus looking pretty swingy here. He's doing about 18 damage between 14 and 22, coming in about 2.5 damage behind Angron.
Okay.
And you can see just a little bit, I know it's a little bit hard to see here, is that Magnus is just slightly less likely to kill Fulgrim than Angron is.
Yeah. It is really hard to superimpose that much information, isn't it?
It is. I played around with some versions that had even more graphs on them, and it does start getting messy really fast. I feel like 4 is generally the tops.
That makes sense.
All right. Next target. Going into Angron.
Everybody fighting Angron.
This might be slightly disappointing, but again, I decided not to give Fulgrim -1 AP, even though it would make a slight difference. It just doesn't actually help him with ROI because it would just cost him more points. So everything you're about to see here is literally identical because Angron and Fulgrim have the same defensive profile.
We're about to see identical output. Yeah, that
identical
makes sense.
output. So again, Fulgrim doing like 16 damage to Angron between 11 and 22. Angron comes out on top, about 20.5 damage between 14 and 27.
It's a big high swing.
Mortarion doing just less than 10 between 6 and 13. And Magnus once again doing 18.17 between 14 and 22.
And again, evidence of the breadth of the data points coming from Angron in that he does up to 27.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. Again, you can see this tail swinging all the way up close to 60. Even if these are very unlikely.
Very unlikely, but it could happen.
It could totally happen. All right. More interestingly, though, let's go ahead and send these guys into Mortarion. Mortarion, as we already determined, is the most durable. He does have a 5-up Feel No Pain, but he does not have -1 damage because that would cost 2 extra CP, which we determined was not worth it and against our rules. So Fulgrim is going to do about 10 damage into Morty between 7 and 13, so not likely to kill him. Angron doing about 13.5, maybe 14 damage between 9 and 18. He's actually only killing Mortarion like just over a third of the time, like 37% of the time.
Wow.
Yeah, Mortarion is hard to take down.
Oh my god.
And again, this is the best performer, so Angron does the most damage at probably not killing him.
Wow.
Morty into Morty is just a slap fest because he's doing like 6.5 damage between 4 and 9, just farting on each other back and forth.
I want to do, new short. I want to request that we make a short. How many turns on average would it take for 2 Mortarions to kill one another?
3.
Oh.
I feel like the owl from those old commercials. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? A 1, a 2, 3. It takes 3. All right, and then finally, Magnus into Mortarion. only doing about 10.5 damage between 8 and 13.
None of them are likely to kill him.
None of them are likely to kill him. That's right.
But of course, he's not likely to kill anybody.
But he's also not likely to kill anyone else. That's true. Again, I just want to highlight that I feel like Mortarion is much better in a supporting role, especially because he's so survivable, so he's likely to survive longer. Mortarion is my nemesis, but he's probably not going to win here.
Oh my gosh.
And then finally, into Magnus the Red. Fulgrim doing about 11.5 damage between 7 and 15, killing him something like 24% of the time.
Wow. That's actually... Yeah, I guess we did look at the durability plot, and we saw that Magnus is number 2 for durability.
Yeah, he is number 2 for durability. That -1 damage is pretty huge, and he doesn't have to pay for it. He just has to give up his other buffs, like making weapons hazardous or giving his other units +2 to move.
Right, which he wants to do.
Yeah, which he wants to do in this case, and in many cases, I think. Next, we have Angron, once again, the front runner, doing 17 damage, basically, between 11 and 22. He's going to kill him, 54-ish% of the time.
Wow, okay.
So most of the time, Angron will kill Magnus on the charge.
But only just.
Next up, Mortarion, doing 8 damage between 5 and 11, almost half killing him. Not bad. And Magnus into Magnus. Also, notice how steep this spike is and how little geography there is compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, interesting.
So Magnus will do about 12 damage between 9 and 14, only killing himself 18-ish% of the time. Okay, so now we got a bunch of data. Let's go ahead and aggregate it.
Okay.
So
Aggregate.
What I did was I made a table, and I made it more legible than last time.
Wow. You responded to my input in the time of this presentation.
So this is a little bit weird. On the left, we have the attackers, Magnus, Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion, and their points cost, which doesn't come into play here.
Okay.
And for the columns, we have what they're attacking into, Magnus, Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion.
Okay. And the percentages, those are percentages input?
These are not percentages. These are just flat how much damage they do.
Oh,
so
okay,
Magnus does 11.76 damage to Magnus, 18.17 damage to Fulgrim, 18.7 damage to Angron, and 10.65 damage to Mortarion.
And we'll notice once again that the two center columns are identical because Fulgrim, Angron, same defensive profile.
And again, I was really tempted to give Fulgrim -1 AP just to give it some variation, but we decided that was against our rules. So
I also am tempted to say that because Fulgrim gets fights first, then he gets the edge in a tie.
We'll discuss that. We're going to return to that issue.
Okay.
So on the right here, I have essentially the average damage that they do to the other Primarchs, and you're going to see that Angron is just by far the front runner.
Yeah,
doing 17.975 damage on average to the other Primarchs. And then we have Fulgrim and Magnus actually coming in really close to each other, with Magnus just a little bit higher at 14.7 and Fulgrim at 13.3. And the Mortarion far behind at only 8.5 damage.
Wow. Okay, yeah, Mortarion is not a damage doer.
Yeah. So, because this is not just about damage, we also care about durability, I then made another table. What is this? The ratio of damage done to damage taken from each target.
Okay, so if this is a Magnus v well, it could be, that would be ones. I see ones. If it's Magnus versus Fulgrim, you take the damage output that they do as compared to the damage they would receive from precisely that target.
Yeah. So what this means is that Magnus is going to do 56% more damage to Fulgrim.
Okay, so a value greater than 1 suggests that the guys on our left is winning, rather than the ones above. If you have a value below 1, then we're comparing left to top, not top to left.
If you're talking about attacker to defender,
Left, the character on the left over the damage of whatever's on the left over the damage whatever is on the top.
They would take from whatever is on the top, So
right, okay.
Actually, the way I should say this is Magnus does 56% more damage than he takes into Fulgrim.
Okay, so you're
you're going to see that Magnus actually beats out Angron here, doing more damage to Angron than he takes from Angron. So even though Angron does more damage overall in general, Magnus ends up doing more damage to Angron than Angron does to Magnus.
Wow.
By a ratio of about 7.5%.
I see a couple of these values that are very close to 1 that suggest close ties.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, Mortarion. Magnus is doing like 33% more damage to Mortarion than he's taking from Mortarion.
Right.
So, again, we only actually have to look at half of this graph. For Fulgrim, I guess. Fulgrim is losing to Magnus and Angron in terms of damage done, but doing more damage to Mortarion than he's taking by about 4%, 5%.
Wow.
Angron is losing to Magnus, but he does more damage to Fulgrim and Mortarion than he takes.
Okay.
By fairly wide margin. And Mortarion just takes more damage from everyone. He's not as much of a damage dealer.
Okay, and then over on the right here, what we effectively have is
the average of those values.
Average of damage that Fulgrim does to everybody compared to the average everybody does to Fulgrim.
Exactly.
So against like ambiguous, approximate Primarch.
Yeah. So for the winner, we have Magnus doing, on average, 32.5% more damage than he takes.
Magnus beats Primarch.
Angron is just behind at about 21.7% more damage than he takes.
Angron still beats Primarch, but by not as much.
And then Fulgrim and Mortarion are actually
super tight.
Neck and neck.
Wow.
So we have Fulgrim at 0.817. And we have Mortarion at 0.804.
Interesting.
So these two are actually really, really close, and you're definitely going to notice that Fulgrim is cheaper than Mortarion.
That suggests to me that the amount less, this is what I hear, the amount less damage Mortarion does to everybody is very correctly sort of corrected for by the inverse, giving him lots more durability. Precisely, they did the right amount. They're like, how much less damage he's going to do? We need to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
This is how much more durable he has to be.
Right. These are pretty well balanced. But again, I think Mortarion gives a lot of buffs to other things.
Right. Mortarion gives a lot of buffs to other things. And so does Magnus, but like he's giving up the opportunity to do it in order to be this powerful.
Yeah, that's true.
So he gets to flex into badass Primarch or Mortarion like support staff.
Yeah. So what that means is, if we're just looking at damage output, Angron is the winner. But if we're looking at essentially how well they perform against each other, Magnus the Red comes in first place, Angron comes in second, Fulgrim barely in third, and Mortarion in fourth.
That's I guess what I would have predicted.
But we still haven't taken their points into consideration.
Okay, so now we're going to take what we just learned and go return on investment.
Right. So now we're going to look at these, and essentially, instead of looking at damage done to damage taken, we're going to look at return on investment from one versus return on the investment from the other compared to each other.
Okay, so
yeah, can you synthesize that for me?
So is it going to be against these values calculated against generic Primarch or individually against all three of the others?
Yeah. So if I had Magnus into Fulgrim, it's the ROI of Magnus into Fulgrim divided by the ROI of Fulgrim into Magnus.
That makes perfect sense. That's very clear. So
totally.
Magnus, you pair Magnus and Fulgrim, how much damage Magnus does over his points value versus how much damage he takes over points value. Well, how much...
yeah, you could look at it that way.
Oh, the ratio of return on investment of damage from Angron
into Fulgrim
versus damage of Fulgrim into Angron.
Yes.
And the ratio of their respective ROIs.
Yes.
This is the ratio of the ROIs of the damages of the Primarch.
Yeah, you got it. Okay. So now if we take their points into consideration, we find something very slightly different.
Ooh, okay, that's exciting.
Because Angron is significantly cheaper than Magnus now. He's like 75 points cheaper. And as a result, Angron actually comes out ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's got basically an efficiency of like 128%, whereas Magnus now only has a points efficiency of about 109%.
So these values are still technically kind of against generic Primarch, but it's calculated again at the end because it's aggregating individually calculated values into the other three Primarchs.
Yeah, but you can look at them individually. If you look at Magnus and Angron for points efficiency, Magnus only has like 89% as much points efficiency as Angron.
Wow. But he's much more efficient against Mortarion and Fulgrim.
Right. So now what happens is the difference between Fulgrim and Mortarion becomes a little bit more dramatic because, again, Mortarion is 40 points more than Fulgrim is. So Fulgrim jumps up to 0.93 and Mortarion jumps down to 0.79.
Wow. Now, Mortarion is showing up really poorly here, basically because he's about as expensive, approximately. We can see the values there. He falls right in the middle of the pack of the cost, but his role is not to do damage, so his return on investment is going to look bad.
Yeah. So in a straight matchup, Magnus does win, but if we look at it in terms of points, then actually Angron comes out on top. Angron is the most points efficient into other Primarchs. Which makes sense because he loves the big targets.
Yeah, that's what he wants to have an epic duel.
Totally.
Cool.
So it just switched the order of those two, but it also just broadened the gap between Fulgrim and Mortarion. Whereas Fulgrim now is markedly better than Mortarion, whereas before he was pretty much neck and neck.
Okay, interesting.
But as you kind of alluded to earlier, there's one more thing we have to consider, and I might need your help with the explanation here.
Okay.
I did some more calculations, and one thing that we totally forgot to mention, although not forgot, but failed to mention, decided not to mention.
Strategically failed to mention.
Is that Fulgrim would almost certainly give himself fights first. Which means he is always going to be the first attacker, and if he survives that first swing, then he's going to get to attack twice a lot of times. And if he attacks twice, he very frequently kills a lot of Primarchs.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't take this into consideration, but the other thing to remember is that on that second attack, his guns would be -1 to hit, but he has a stratagem where he can ignore modifiers. So for a CP, he could also ignore that modifier if you really needed to get the kill.
Who are we talking about?
Fulgrim. Because once they're in combat, once they start shooting, they're going to be at -1 to hit each other.
So you can, not only can big guns never tire shoot out of combat, you can shoot your big guns into what you're fighting as long as it's not blast.
You got it.
Which
is why the Rotwind stops being useful here.
Even Mortarion can't take his own stink.
Yeah. But here's the interesting thing. So Fulgrim kills Angron 48% of the time. Just on his first attack, which he will get to do.
He will always fight first.
And then if he fails, Angron's going to kill him 67% of the time.
Right.
So there's a 65% chance that Fulgrim's going to get to attack Angron twice, 2 times.
Right, because what you're saying is 48%, 50% of the time, he wins every time.
Yeah, exactly.
67% of the time, of the remainder, he loses. So really that's 33.5% of the time.
Something like that.
Yeah, a third of the time, if he didn't kill Fulgrim first go, then he would die. But if he survives that second bout, he's definitely going to kill whoever, except for Mortarion, maybe.
Well, yeah, I guess except for Mortarion. But in a prolonged combat, Mortarion's not going to kill him. It's probably going to take 3 turns.
Oh, good God.
And so then, Fulgrim is very likely to kill him.
And then he doesn't care about fights first either. Right. He's like, oh, whatever.
And I wish I had included this one other number. So I then tabulated how often Fulgrim would kill Angron if he got to attack 2 times. And it turns out that essentially Fulgrim is going to beat Angron 60.1% of the time.
So when you did that, did you... so you actually simulated 2 successive attacks. That way you
one
had
where he's -1 to hit at range.
Because otherwise you'd have to determine an arbitrary value of how much damage Angron had taken previously from the first bout.
Because there's still a chance that he's not going to kill him in 2 attacks.
Right, because you'd think you'd want to be like, okay, 48% plus percentage of taking whatever's left, but it's not so simple.
There's a chance he could fail the second time. So I took that into consideration and found that Fulgrim wins 60.1% of the time.
That is cool and a little bit weird to give number values to, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Now, if I do Fulgrim into Magnus, he only kills Magnus 24% of the time, and then in return, Magnus kills him 65% of the time, which means 50.6% of the time Fulgrim gets to fight twice.
Wow.
Just more than half. But Fulgrim does not always kill Magnus in 2 attacks. I think he kills Magnus in 2 attacks like more than 2/3 of the time. But overall, that means that Fulgrim only wins like 38.5% of the time.
Interesting. Okay.
So what that tells us is that in a straight cage match, Fulgrim moves to number 2. And
because he just beat the tar out of...
Because he's going to beat Angron.
That's pretty cool.
And then if we look at points efficiency, he comes pretty close, and he wins in a straight fight against Magnus quite frequently. And if we look at points efficiency, they end up being very, very close. I think, and it's hard because in order to know exactly, I'd have to, do some other programming or look at some other chances, because the odds were close enough that it's really, really close. That when we look at points efficiency, Magnus and Fulgrim are like neck and neck. But I think Magnus just barely beats out Fulgrim.
Because Magnus is a lot more expensive than Fulgrim. So Fulgrim comes out on top 38.5% of the time, but he pays proportionally less.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So in a straight cage match, I mean, there's a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors thing going on here. Where, Angron beats Magnus, Magnus beats Fulgrim, Fulgrim beats Angron. So, I mean, as to who is the winner, I mean, I still think it's kind of hard. Like, in a straight fight, I'm not actually sure who's the best.
Because this whole fights first thing really twists this into a new shape.
Right. So I think Magnus still comes out on top, but when we're looking at points efficiency, it is way harder to judge.
Because Fulgrim right now is in 3rd, but he also is likely to beat the guy who's in 1st.
Yes.
So that really...
So I think what we really found out is that the clear loser is just Mortarion.
Yes.
In this fight.
Yes. That's amazing.
But yeah, all 3 of these guys are really neck and neck. And I just freaking love that. And they're all kind of good at their own sort of thing.
Wow, yeah. That is so cool. Interesting. Yeah. And then on top of it, though, I want to acknowledge Fulgrim's increased speed. And I think that just and I wonder if that's sort of appropriately countered by his base being an extra inch in diameter.
But, I mean, regardless of his speed, he just has fights first. But yeah, he can get to where he wants to easier.
Yeah, I feel like that makes him a bit more flexible and likely
but he also has a base that's like an inch wider, and he still has to go around ruins unless they're of a particular height, I think.
And I think you're observing the same... Oh, yeah, please help us weigh in on that. He just has fly, so why is going over things that are 4 inches tall...
I'm pretty sure what that means is he can just ignore that movement.
Yeah.
Just ignore them. But yeah, I'm not.
But 100%. I think I just observed you go through the same mental loop I did. You're like, well, he's faster, but also his base. Do those effectively counter each other?
Yeah.
Like, fascinating. Well, I want to get all of them.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I have recently finished my little Corbulo model here, who will very shortly be getting an episode.
Oh my God.
What do you say I go and paint a bodyguard unit for him? I think he needs some assault intercessors.
Okay, cool. Right. Also, we should call and say hi to the Blood Angel Commander. We got work to do with him.
Yeah, we got work to do. All right. Bye, Warpines.
Thank you for watching another episode of WarpHammer Math.
For the Emperor!
All right, we got this. Ha ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha!